All right. Well, great. Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining today's call. Do again apologize for the little bit of a delayed start, but we did have a little bit of a buffer, so I think that might be okay. Before we get started, we just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items with all of you. Today's event will be recorded. It will be available to you all later, but first we will be adding closed captioning and posting it for public access. We did block 2 hours, but we did anticipate that today's call would run about 90 minutes. As you can tell here at GD Mission Systems, we're pretty new to Zoom, so we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of buffer on both sides so we didn't unintentionally get cut off. We will have 3 presentations today with time following each one for your questions. Right now, your line should be on mute if you're not a speaker, so if you could just confirm that, we would greatly appreciate it. So good morning, and thank you again, all of you, for joining. My name is Andrea Hall, and I serve as the lead for diversity and inclusion here at General Dynamics Mission Systems. We're honored to serve today as the host for this discussion. I know I am, and I hope you are excited to hear from our friends both at the Department of Labor and from the DC Metro affiliate of Disability-In. Today's discussion is so timely, as we all just celebrated Veterans Day, and here at General Dynamics Mission Systems, we actually celebrate Veterans Week. We have a robust level of activities in support of our veteran community with our Veterans Council Employee Resource Group and our Employee Engagement Team and our Community Investment Team and volunteers. This year, we included a push-up challenge to raise awareness around veteran suicide. We also hosted a virtual nationwide 5K to fundraise for the Wounded Warrior Project. We designed and distributed a veterans coin that was mailed to all of our veterans employees, which we are at 18%, so that's a lot of shipping and mailing of that veterans coin. And we also hosted a whole ton of other things. We had speaker series and photograph sharing and videos from our leaders that are veterans and a CEO statement of support from Chris Brady. We really love just taking that time out to show our gratitude to our veterans who so honorably served our nation and have made the choice to stay in the mission here with GD and specifically at GD Mission Systems. But truth be told, when it comes to recruiting and hiring and retaining veterans and military members, at General Dynamics, it is literally Veterans Day every day. In fact, on today's call, we have our veteran recruiting leads from all of the different General Dynamics business units. We here at Mission Systems are so proud to be the recent recipient of the 2020 Hire Vets Platinum Medallion Award, as well as the 2021 Military Spouse Friendly Employer Award. We all here at GD recognize the amazing talent pool that's found in our veterans and their spouses. And for me as a military spouse, I know personally the challenges that we in the military community may face when trying to secure valuable employment. So this is why we have really developed such a comprehensive and collaborative strategy at General Dynamics to recruit military members. So our programs include dedicated veteran recruiting staff across all of the business units. We provide one-on-one assistance to our veterans and military members. We also have military occupational skills translators. Several of us are authorized skill bridge organizations. I know that here at Mission Systems, we've brought on about a dozen interns and several of them have accepted full-time positions. And now we at Mission Systems are excited to have accepted the GovCon Executive Community Challenge to support the Department of Labor and the Veterans Apprenticeship Pilot Program, which we're all going to hear about today. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce the Honorable Catherine McCary to share with us about the DC Metro affiliate of Disability-In. And so Catherine, the floor is yours.
Andrea, thank you very much and welcome everyone. For those of you who may be new to the Disability-In community, this is the largest organization in the country that is business-led. to include people with disabilities in the workforce, in the marketplace, and supply chain. We are the local chapter, the DC Metro chapter. We're a very robust chapter and have won the awards twice for being the chapter affiliate of the year. We pride ourselves on our successful connections to the business community, as well as the partners in the service provider community, and welcoming everybody to our mission so that we can increase education and awareness to including people with disabilities in our workforce today. This is our 8th annual Veterans Symposium. Of course, it's not in person, but we are excited about having you all attend, and we're thrilled to have our speakers to share with us and get us, as Andrea said, every day should be Veterans Day. And I appreciate the work that you're doing at General Dynamics, as well as the rest of the folks on our board. Our chair, Sophie Howard, who's at General Dynamics IT, is going to be taking us through today and introducing the speakers. But we welcome you all and thank you for being with us. And with that, Sophie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Andrea. General Dynamics IT and Mission Systems and several of our other GD family colleagues are on the call today. We represent the greater General Dynamics. So while we have independent and separate companies, we are very much aligned in our mission focus. And certainly veterans is a huge part of it. I happen to be an Army brat, grew up in Germany, and have always been surrounded by military. It kind of gets in your blood. So I'm very honored to be here today. We do have at GDIT the lead for our Honor ERG. So at some point today, I would like to invite Craig to share a little bit about what we have done to honor our veterans throughout the month of November. I serve as the chair for the Disability and DC Metro affiliate, and at GDIT, I also serve as the lead for our Ability First employee resource group. So, as I said, we're honored to recognize our veterans today, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers. So today we have with us the Assistant Secretary John Lowry of VETS, the Veteran Employment and Training Service, Bill Metheny, I hope I pronounced that right. Stephanie Metheny. Yes, I think I have it right. And yeah. Carolyn Rennick. Thank you. So as Andrea said, we welcome your questions, your comments. Feel free to use the chat. You can also take yourself off mute at the end of each speaker's comments so that we have an opportunity to really engage and learn as much as we can about what they're going to share today. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce Assistant Secretary John Lowry, who was sworn in as the Assistant Secretary for the Veteran Employment and Training Service on January 20th of this year. So welcome to your appointment, sir, and to COVID. You've had to live through it all.
Right.
Prior to his appointment, Mr. Lowry led the U.S. supply chain and operations practice at Egan Zender, which is a corporate leadership advisory firm. He was also the COO of Allied Recreation Group, a recreational vehicle manufacturing company, and spent 12 years in various manufacturing leadership roles with Harley-Davidson. Assistant Secretary Lowry's distinguished career, however, began in the Marine Corps, where he served more than 15 years on active duty and 10 years in the Marine Corps Reserve, retiring in 2009 at the rank of colonel. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Princeton University, a Master of Liberal Arts from Stanford, an MBA from the Harvard Business School, and a Master of Strategic Studies from the U.S. Army War College. We thank you and honored that you are here today. We thank you for your service and we welcome you. And with that, Secretary Lowry, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Catherine. I appreciate the introduction. It's great to be here and have an opportunity to join this Wounded Warrior Symposium. And I am very grateful for all the tremendous work you do supporting our great veterans who obviously have sacrificed so much for our nation. And I want to congratulate Andrea and General Dynamics once again for your Higher Vets Medallion Award. Nicely done. So thanks for that. As Catherine mentioned, I've been in this role for the last 10 months, and it's been a real privilege leading the Veterans Employment and Training Service, or as we call it, VETS, which is a pretty handy and probably not accidental acronym. And I think many of you know what we do, but for those who don't, we administer a number of programs that support the employment and training needs of veterans of all eras, those soon-to-be veterans who are transitioning off of active duty. And increasingly, we're serving the military spouse community. And during my relatively short time here, I have had the opportunity to meet and engage with a great many of our partners in this veteran and military spouse employment space. And it's just been incredibly impressive. Everyone's collective commitment and passion for serving our veterans and our transitioning service members and our spouses. And it's just been humbling to be part of this extended team as we all perform this noble work of enabling success for all these great Americans. I'd like to first provide you with an update of what's going on in our agency and just some kind of reflections on veterans employment in general. And then offer you some thoughts. I think Andrea mentioned, every day is Veterans Day at General Dynamics, which is great. We feel the same way. But we did just have Veterans Day last week at a particularly interesting time, I think, in our nation's history. And I just want to offer a couple of reflections at the end on that. First, the updates. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so as many of you know, by the end of 2019, veteran unemployment had continued its years of steady decreases. And this is certainly a credit to the continued advocacy and support of veterans, people on this phone and our extended network of partners in this space. And in fact, in 2019, the average monthly unemployment rate for veterans was 3.1%. And that's the kind of the low mark of that curve that you see there. And that's the best it's been since 2000. While veteran employment obviously shot up, and you can see that there due to the COVID-19 outbreak, veterans today are employed at higher rates than their non-veteran counterparts. And you see that in the spread between the two lines, the blue line being the non-veteran cohort, the red line being the veteran cohort, sort of on the right side of the distribution. And what that says to me is that employers recognize the value veterans are bringing to their organizations, and they want to hold on to them, especially during these challenging times. Now, I know a lot of people fear that COVID's inflicted irreparable economic damages, but the truth is veteran unemployment today, and the last numbers came out 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, it's sitting at 5.9%. Those were the October numbers. And that's far better than the 9% that it hit during the depth of the Great Recession. You can see that green line across the graph that shows, at its worst during the Great Recession and kind of where we are relative to that. Now, the good news is we have a few things going for us now that we didn't have back then. First of all, we've recently made this journey to record low unemployment for veterans, so we know how to do it again. Secondly, our agency, VETS, is better resourced than we were a decade ago when we were facing these challenges. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we know that the majority of those who were recently furloughed due to COVID-19 will be able to return to their former jobs once it's safe to fully reopen the country. Now, it's debatable whether that's, a slight majority of people will have jobs to go back to or a vast majority of people, but still, this is an advantage that we didn't have during the Great Recession. None of this is to say that the road to full recovery is not going to be challenging, okay? But it is to say that we're up for the challenge of putting our unemployed veterans back to work. So let me talk a little bit about the agency. If you could go to the next slide, please. So at VETS, our vision is to enable all veterans to reach their full potential in the workplace. And obviously the potential, it's an individual thing based on, aspirations and their situation and whatnot. But regardless of that individual, we want every one of them to be able to hit their full potential. It's not good enough just to help veterans find jobs, right? We want veterans to find work that will challenge them, help them learn and grow, and put them in a position to make the biggest impact. And achieving this vision, it not only helps the veterans and certainly their families and the companies and organizations they serve, but when you aggregate all of these veterans reaching their full potential and the impact they're going to make when they do so, that's just good for America's prosperity and ultimately our security. And this vision informs our 2 agency priorities. There is no higher priority than getting the transition right, okay? If we can crank an extra degree or 2 of slope on someone's career trajectory and have them hit that slope with a running start when they hang up the uniform, the compounding benefits of that over time are just amazing. And conversely, if we get the transition wrong, the negative implications can last a lifetime. And the second priority is we have to have the right strategic partnerships to maximize our impact on veteran employment outcomes and really better harness the collective energies of all the many organizations in this space. If you could go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we got going on in the transition front, which again is, there is no higher priority. And these are initiatives that are above and beyond the employment workshops we already provide to nearly 200,000 transitioning service members annually at over 200 military installations worldwide. And of course, with COVID, many of these workshops had migrated from brick and mortar to the virtual format, and in a lot of places we were doing sort of a virtual / brick and mortar hybrid, and we've been sort of toggling in and out of these 2 realms based on the ebbs and flows of the pandemic. But enabling a seamless transition from military service to civilian life is essential for veterans if they're going to reach their full potential. And the department is rolling out, and I think Andrea mentioned it, an employment navigator and partnership pilot. And the idea is this is beyond outside of the workshop where the service person can go and get one-on-one sort of concierge service to help transitioning service member identify what their civilian career aspirations are, and then connect them to the best partners or resources to begin that journey while they're still in uniform. And we know that it continues to be a challenge of people getting out of the military and really not knowing what they want to do. And this employment navigator is going to help them answer that question. And it's critical that we're proactively providing the military community with the resources necessary to get the transition right if we're going to reap the benefits of these high quality American workers, right? And again, while avoiding the consequences of a flawed transition. We're not interested in duplicating efforts, of all the many employment services provided by our partners. Instead, what we want to do is connect that transitioning service member to the programs and services which make the most sense to help them on their particular journey to realize their unique ambitions. That's basically the idea. And in the box on the right of the slide, you can see the 13 installations where we're going to pilot this initiative beginning in 2021. And I can tell you that all of the services are very excited, as am I, about the potential. Our other pilot, which is very much underway, is specific to those interested in pursuing apprenticeships, and Carolyn Rennick leads this initiative, and you're going to be hearing from her shortly. So I'm not going to say much more about that. And then we're developing some specialized transition curricula specific to the employment situation of sort of unique customer groups within that within this space. So next year we're going to develop a course tailored specifically to wounded warriors, which I know would be of interest to this group. And we're just piloting a military spouse curriculum. We are calling this TEAMS, another handy acronym standing for Transition Employment Assistance for military spouses. And Teams has developed 4 Teams courses to address employment-related challenges faced by our military spouses. And they'll be presented in both virtual and in-person classroom settings. The 4 initial offerings you see there on the slide will assist military spouses in their career endeavors with training on employment essentials, and again, tailored to their needs. In addition, we expect to make this curriculum available to our partners at DoD for their use. And, one of the things we've heard from the military spouse community is that, if you just have this kind of one-time brick and mortar opportunity that doesn't match with their schedule, that doesn't do a lot of good. So we want to offer basically as many paths as we can to connect the military spouse with this curriculum. So that's why we're sharing it broadly with DoD and having virtual offerings and the like. Another program that supports transition service members and veterans alike is the Hire Vets Medallion Program, which again, General Dynamics just earned. Last week, we held our virtual Hire Vets Medallion award ceremony and honored the 2020 recipients. This event recognized 675 organizations who earned this prestigious award, and it's the only federal award which recognizes companies who excel at hiring, retaining, and supporting veterans. And due in part to the help of a lot of people on the phone here helping us get the word out, we were very encouraged to see a nearly 60% increase of awardees from last year. And I also want to add that of those 675 awardees, 217 were repeat awardees from last year, and 58 have received the medallion for the 3 years that this program has been in existence. And not only is the Hire Vets Medallion Program great in helping veterans find the right employers, or those soon to be veterans transitioning off of active duty, but it gives the employer a competitive advantage in the war for talent, because the Medallion Award serves as a beacon for veterans looking for companies where they're going to thrive. So hiring, retaining, and supporting veterans, it's not only the right thing to do, it's a smart business decision. Obviously, General Dynamics and other leading companies recognize that. Again, the Hire Vets Medallion is something to recognize that. Just a little infomercial here. The next application period is going to open on January 30th, 2021. So not too long from now. And if you want to learn more, you want to apply, our website is hirevets.gov. And I really think, given, connecting the dots of what we've seen over the last 3 years, that we have the possibility to actually double our awardees next year. Okay, next slide. Let me just toggle over and just give you some thoughts on Veterans Day. Just like at General Dynamics, every day is Veterans Day here at Vets. Oh, that's Hire Vets, sorry. That was all the Hire Vets. Okay, here we go. I'll give you a second to digest that slide. This is General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, I should say, at the time, signing the original Veterans Day proclamation, where he wanted us to, as the slide says, solemnly remember the sacrifices of all who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on the foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom. By asking us, as the slide goes down, to reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting enduring peace, it's really a call to action, right? We need to dedicate ourselves to peace so that the sacrifices of veterans will not have been in vain. And with this proclamation, what Eisenhower did is he expanded the focus of what previously had been known as Armistice Day, as I think most of us know, to a recognition of U.S. military veterans of all generations, not just those of the First World War. But what remained the same about the two holidays, however, was this notion that November 11th is a day not just for honoring veterans, but also for working together as a country to promote peace. And in this sense, again, I think it's a call to action, and I believe that veterans are really in a unique position to answer that call. If you could just toggle over to the next slide, please. So, you know, promoting peace requires respect for one another, right? Something that veterans, I believe, learn in their formative years in uniform. And this is not just my perspective. I speak with veterans every day who remind me how foundational mutual respect is to our military culture. I had a recent conversation with John Walters, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan as an enlisted Marine, now leads a sales team down at, in Houston for Shell Oil Company. Reflecting on his time, John was talking to me about how important it is to accept people's differences, right? And then take advantage of those differences, and syncing those differences was the word he used, to achieve long-term team success. And to the extent that we can respect our differences, right, to include our differences of opinion, we will be able to reinforce our sense of national unity. And in this period of social unrest and political acrimony, I believe that veterans, through their example, are going to help us remember that we can have our differences, but what defines us as Americans is our shared experience. Next slide, please. So in addition to national unity, a robust economy fueled by successful businesses also promotes peace. And, you know, veterans bring significant value to the organizations they choose to serve and often create, right? Vietnam veteran and FedEx founder Fred Smith, who you see there on the left, has famously said, you know, I don't believe I could have built FedEx without the skills I learned from the Marine Corps. And indeed, generations of American veterans have credited the lessons of military service for their ability to help companies thrive and to enjoy successful careers themselves. And it's no surprise to me that a LinkedIn analysis recently found that veterans are more likely to be promoted earlier than non-veterans. You know, again and again, your veterans are demonstrating their capacity for delivering results as they also demonstrate their readiness to assume increased responsibilities. And let's go to the last slide. I think the next slide. I think this is the last slide. Maybe there's one more. But anyway, I want to thank all the veterans for their contributions, both in and out of uniform. And I do encourage all Americans to remember that Veterans Day or Veterans Week, as you have it at General Dynamics, or Veterans Year. It's not just about honoring veterans, right? It's also about, as President Eisenhower proclaimed, promoting and enduring peace. And to that end, I have great faith that America's veterans will continue to answer the call. So thanks. I think this is, I believe is my last slide. Just want to thank you. Yes, for joining today. I want to sincerely thank the DC Metro affiliate of Disability In for organizing this symposium, General Dynamics, and it was a real privilege to spend a little time with you today. And I'm open to any questions you might have.
So thank you, Secretary Lowry, just for your kind words, and just really kind of a humbling opportunity for us to really step back and kind of realize the value that veterans have, just as when they serve in active duty, but also as they join industry and you know, across the nation to continue to really bridge that peace and really share the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. So thank you for that. Can you tell us a little bit more? Catherine's put something in the chat, so I'll go ahead and field some of the questions if you don't mind. But
Sure.
She'd like you to share a little bit about the Wounded Warrior initiative that you mentioned earlier.
So we are in the very early stages of developing this curriculum, but the idea is similar to with the military spouses. So, you know, the military spouse experience is different from the transitioning spouse experience because their resumes are going to look different, right? They're not going to have this kind of linear career progression that a service person has. They may have gaps in their resume because of PCS moves and those kinds of things. And so what we've done is we've teased out for the military spouses how you sort of address those and market those and actually flip those from being liabilities to actually assets, and highlight the many things that a military spouse experience would bring to an employer that someone who hasn't had those kinds of experience and had to demonstrate that sort of resilience wouldn't have. Similarly, what we're doing as we're building out the Wounded Warrior curriculum is we're trying to understand, first of all, what is different or unique about the Wounded Warrior transition that would be set them apart in some way from the regular transitioning service person, and then build curriculum around that so the Wounded Warriors will kind of understand the additional value they might bring, understand how to position themselves to overcome some possible objections, again, turning a perceived weakness into a strength, and then also helping them with, there's resources out there that are going to be unique to the Wounded Warrior community that wouldn't necessarily be available to the regular transitioning service member community, and highlighting those so that the Wounded Warrior, again, gets connected with the right resource for them in their particular circumstance. So again, at the very early stages of this, but I think what we've learned from developing the military spouse curriculum and all of the feedback we got from the mil spouses that we piloted this with in Fort Gordon and Fort Hood and NAS Jacksonville, and we also did virtual workshops where we had 500 military spouses, more than 500 military spouses participate. That feedback was really strong. We have equal confidence that the Wounded Warrior community will also find that value as we roll this out. Does that answer your question, Sophie?
Yes, thank you. So there's a few more comments in the chat. Andrea, do you want to just come off mute and share your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, I was just, as household 6 for 23 years, I can really appreciate this program that you're putting together for military spouses. And so my question is, thinking about the silver lining that COVID has offered to us and understanding how much more people can actually work from home and how we can have career mobility and kind of move from location to location. I was just curious to know if you're going to do a similar CEO challenge for the military spouse and the Wounded Warrior hiring programs that you're developing to kind of urge that corporate top-down push?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what form it's going to take, but yes, I think I totally agree. We've learned a lot from COVID, and just give you an example. I was talking to Bo Higgins, who I think some of you may know. He runs all the military hiring for Amazon, and I just had a conversation with him about 2-3 weeks ago, and he was talking about how one of the great lessons that Amazon has learned is that, we could build a military spouse career over decades and have them do all their work virtually. They're doing day, and why not, right? And I think, Amazon's obviously a large company, and if they're coming to this realization with, complex global operations, if they're coming to this realization, I think so many other companies will be too. So the question is then, Andrea, how do we open the minds of the CEO populations and the business world at large to this new reality and help them do the sort of the right things to, enable those career paths for the mil spouses. So I agree. It's a silver lining. We're not quite sure how we're going to get the word out. Right now it's sort of ad hoc and informal, but I think we need to do something a little bit more, kind of disciplined or regimented, if you will, to make sure that we're not missing some great opportunities out there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
so I would think,
I was just going to say really quickly, Sophie, that I think that Sophie and I would love to volunteer GD to help you on that path if you need industry buy-in and assistance.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, and the same with the DC Metro chapter. I mean, certainly we're an affiliate comprised of many employers, in the DC market. So we can certainly leverage our employer base to help in this effort.
Excellent.
I would also add that, another silver lining for COVID is really for people with disabilities, our wounded warriors, to have opportunities to maybe work remote, where it's, you know, some of the challenges or barriers they may face just literally trying to get to a brick and mortar building, you know, are kind of taken away. So if we can capitalize on that, I think that could go a long way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? I think Craig Witten, I want to put Craig on the spot a little bit. Craig leads the Honor ERG for GDIT, just to give a shout out for some additional things that we've been doing at General Dynamics.
Thanks, Sophie, and Secretary Lowry, I appreciate your comments. We have spent a lot of time focusing on how to bring veterans into GDIT and to focus on that quality talent, which clearly meets a lot of our needs in supporting our government customers. So thanks for your comments, and thanks for the support you're giving there. One of the things that we've done is taking Veterans Day beyond just Veterans Day and turning it into a Veterans Month at GDIT to talk about not only the outstanding contributions that our veterans make, but also the programs that GDIT does in support of veterans. So in this month, we have built special focus sessions specifically to talk about the contributions of our family members. Tonight, we're going to be doing a special session with our membership and the other employee resource groups here inside the company to talk about military diversity. And then our last event that we'll focus on is a discussion about the changing face of the Veterans Administration and how they have treated veterans over time. One of the special focuses that we'll do during that last week in partnership with Sophie and the Ability First Employee Resource Group is a discussion of innovative sports programs that are being done for those that might have been disabled in support of the service. So we've got a few doctors that are intimately involved with those programs, and they happen to be GDIT employees. So looking forward to this. On Friday, we will do a webinar within the company that talks specifically about the changing face of PTSD with the National Director for PTSD Research from Boston Veterans Medical Center, and then two of our doctors that are specifically on the GDIT project in support of traumatic brain injury at the Traumatic Brain Injury Center of Excellence. And so these are programs that are very near to our heart to talk specifically about how veterans can be enabled to support industry, that just leaving the service doesn't end the veteran service, that we can still be there and support a number of programs. And again, we are coming back to looking at how can we capture veteran talent. So we'll be doing a number of events and talking about veterans talent over the course of the month. So
that's great, Craig.
Thanks everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. So it's very clear that GDIT does care about our veterans, and the 7,000 reported, and we know that we've got a lot more there. So we're doing our best to identify where that talent is.
Thank you, and thank you, Craig, for sharing. And thank you, Mark, also for your comment about hiring our heroes. And certainly we're familiar with them. We need to leverage all the avenues that we can to bring in talented veterans to our companies. So thank you. I'd like to segue now, if we can, to Mr. Matheny, Director of the VETS Office of Field Operations. So in this role, Mr. Matheny leads our VETS operations in all 50 states, the territories, and the District of Columbia, and really making sure that the agency's plans that were outlined by Secretary Lowry are met and carried out, and certainly meeting the needs of those individual locations. Prior to joining VETS, Mr. Matheny served in the Army, so thank you as well, sir, for your service in various assignments around the world. So we welcome you, and I'll turn it over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Sophie. I'm smiling at the slide you used for our intros. On the left-hand side, the photo of DC actually has our Department of Labor headquarters building tucked in there. So that's kind of a nice touch.
Oh, there you go.
And then the photo, so I'm looking at the photo, and some of our team, when I sent my bio in, and we're looking at that photo and going like, that's not a recent photo, is it? Look at all that brown hair. So I'm not sure what to draw from that, observation, but thank you for the opportunity to join you today. So as Mr. Lowry was describing VETS and our mission, I have the privilege of working with our field staff across the country. Many of you know that VETS has our headquarters building that was in that photo, but for the most part, we are distributed across the country. We have people in every state, a state director. We divide up the country into 6 regions, and I get to work with that part of our talented team as well as the director of field operations. And so what I want to do for the next few minutes is share a little bit more detail about what's behind some of the things that Assistant Secretary Lowry just described, some other initiatives that are happening. And I'd like to start with the Disabled Veteran Program, and then we'll segue into an application of how that is being put to work now and some potential for the future. So let's go to the next slide, please. So there's my purpose and what we'd like to talk about a little bit. And the next slide, please. So in fiscal year 2020, as a result of some great partnerships and strong advocacy by many in this space, vets received approval through authorization and appropriation for establishing a disabled veteran program. We got $300,000 to get started. And so we took a look at that authorizing language and thought, okay, how can we put this to best use to get this program off to a great start? Vets has for years looked at our veteran population and their various employment needs to try to figure out who is facing various challenges, who can we help in those areas. As Assistant Secretary Lowry is describing, our focus on TAP is, you know, when we've got 160,000 plus leaving the service every year, that's a pretty strategic population to impact. But we also know that the largest number overall are our veterans who are already transitioned. So how are we thinking about and serving them? So we're constantly looking at the data, and we know that there are some subpopulations of veterans whose employment data is not where it ought to be. And so we're focusing in on those. A few years ago, vets established a women veteran program because we know that our women veterans were facing struggles in the employment space that we needed to look at and understand better. So we hired somebody as a full-time staff person to work and look at that. And now we have this opportunity to add to that effort through a disabled veteran program. We wanted to pause and make sure we do it right and not add a staff member without some thought into how does that fit into the organization and the broader strategic impact that it can have. So what we did is we took some time and we built out a framework that's going to allow us to put this new staff member into an organization that can think about the data that's out there, the feedback from the field, and then integrate it in with the community at large of what's going on in this space. So that's what we did this past year. We established an organization within vets that will report directly up through the headquarters, through our senior leaders up to the assistant secretary. And that organization will be led by somebody that we're really excited about that we just hired a couple months ago, Dr. Stephanie Chen, who's on the call with us today, actually. And she's listening because she's trying to understand and learn all about our interests and the ideas and concerns and questions that are talked about in this forum. Dr. Chen will be heading up that organization. She'll be in charge of understanding the data that's out there and helping us to make sense and draw conclusions. So we will bring our women veteran program into that, our disabled veteran program into that, and we'll have now a core that can look at this from a data-driven and evidence-based approach. So we're excited about Dr. Chan being on board. And then I will tell you more here shortly about what we've been doing this year for the VR&E Apprenticeship Project. Now you're going to hear from Carolyn Rennick shortly after I finish. And I want to make a quick distinction. The project that I'm going to talk about is linked up with the VA's VR&E program. And I'll tell you all about that later, which I'm really excited. Equally exciting, though, is the project she's going to tell you about that ties apprenticeships in with the transition process. So I just want to make sure that we keep those clear in our minds as we move forward. So next slide, please. Now, what are we doing in this year, now that we're in 2021 and moving forward? The apprenticeship, VR&E Apprenticeship Project will conclude. We'll look to see what we've learned from it and then see what we can apply more broadly. We will get that permanent staff member on board in VETS to be our disabled veteran program staff member. And then that person and our women veteran program lead and Dr. Chen will form this office of research and policy and make sure that they're integrated with the broader partnerships. Assistant Secretary Lowry talks about two priorities, right? He talked about the transition, and our strategic partnerships. And those are both governmental, non-governmental, federal, non-federal, private, public, and so on. So that's where we're heading, big picture, with this new resource that we've been given through this Disabled Veteran Program, and we're excited about it. We know that while we're trying to get that organizationally set up and in a way that makes sense, we weren't going to sit and wait and lose this opportunity to start learning and doing things already. So we took advantage of a partnership that has been long-standing between vets and the VA's VR&E program. 25 years ago, we established a memorandum of agreement with that team, and it just keeps getting better and better as we learn from each other and mutually support one another in the process. So let me tell you about how we partnered to sort of bring a couple good ideas together. Next slide, please. The Vocational Readiness and Employment VR&E Apprenticeship Project. Hopefully you're all tracking with the exciting update of the branding for VR&E. Really fun to see how they came across that process and have updated it to make it a useful and meaningful and timely label. So in our partnership, we've had this joint work group over the years, and they put their heads together and thought, you know, as we think about what is useful for and what are the options for a veteran going through this VR&E process, what are the options out there that we can make it even more effective for them? So let's go to the next slide, please. Here's some numbers that are kind of interesting. Over the left-hand side, you'll see that 60% of service members who are transitioning out of the military do not have a degree above a high school diploma. That's a pretty sizable chunk, as you can imagine, which gets at some of what Assistant Secretary Lowry identified early on of how important it is to make sure that transition goes well. So that 60%, when they're leaving without a degree higher than a diploma, what are their annual wages? $38,000. Contrast that with the next column. The average wage, starting wage for someone who has completed a registered apprenticeship program is about $70,000 per year. So that's pretty significant. We also have learned a lot over the last few years as a nation, and particularly within the Department of Labor, that there are some great tracks out there for people to pursue right into employment. Maybe they want to be entrepreneurs, maybe they want to go and use their GI Bill, but maybe there's this other path, and maybe going back to college isn't for everyone. And so the nation, and certainly the Department of Labor, has really been investing in apprenticeships. So we thought, well, how do we get at what those apprenticeships are about? So we thought, well, what's good about them? Well, for one, people who complete an apprenticeship stay employed in that apprenticeship 94% of the time. That's pretty significant when, from a business perspective, right? How much time and energy does it take to find the right talent, train the right talent, and keep the right talent? Well, if we've got a program that can get a 94% retention rate, that's pretty powerful. And then the far right-hand column, we started looking at our own internal data and thought, okay, well, if apprenticeships have those initial positive qualities to them, probably something we're taking advantage of a lot, right? So we looked at the data of a recent year, and 85,000 veterans with disabilities who were enrolled in their VR&E program that year. Out of that 85,000, only 222 were put into apprenticeships, which is 0.3%. So that was stark. A less optimistic approach would be a little frustrated. Why are we missing this opportunity? But we do see potential now. We see, wow, it could really make a difference if we can figure out why that 0.3% is there and then do something about it. So that's what we set about doing. Next slide, please. We decided to put together a project to see if we could increase that number. How? Well, we got our smart folks together and started digging into it and thought, well, why aren't more veterans taking advantage of this great opportunity, especially if apprenticeships are that great? And the VR&E program has some really great benefits with it too. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup, right? Two great tastes that taste great together, and you come up with something even better. So we started looking into it, and we thought, well, could it be that there are not good resources out there to find apprenticeships? And so our teams scoured and started looking around and started identifying what are the resources, where do they go, does it provide the information for a vocational rehabilitation counselor who's working with a veteran to be able to find a great apprenticeship, get them linked up, and get them moving out. And we found out that there were some areas where we could improve in those resources. Were there policies and practices that were slowing things down? Yes, and so we're tackling those. But one of the things that we really honed in on was a misunderstanding of what apprenticeships are in 2020 and beyond. You'll hear this a couple times today. It's so much more. They are so much more than trades and the blue collar skills. And both Carolyn and I will talk about that as we go. So we realized that information and training were going to be key to this. And so we set out and looked around the country to find some places to try out some of these theories, provide some training, and see what could happen. And so what you see listed are the sites where we have identified that we are actually conducting a pilot. We've provided training to all but the Los Angeles site so far. Los Angeles will get their training in December, and they go through 3 modules of training that includes the Voc Rehab, the VR&E staff from the VA. We pull in some of the state workforce agency folks and the folks that are smart on apprenticeships and say, okay, let's talk about what these are, why they're good, how they work, and from the perspective of a Voc Rehab counselor working with a veteran, how do we make this a reality for you that's smooth, easy, understandable? And that's where we are. So the training, it will be completed here shortly. We are starting to measure now to see if we start to see a change in people getting into apprenticeships through the VR&E process. 222 in a year is all we've got to beat, right? And so we'll see what happens. We will be measuring over the course of now until the spring, and then we'll stop measuring to see how it has improved. Now, we're still going to let them keep it applying and pushing people towards apprenticeships if that's a good fit for them. But we'll stop the measurement, we'll see what worked, get their feedback, assess it, and then we will spread the good parts of that broadly across the country. We've already gotten some really exciting requests from folks saying, well, is it okay if we're not one of those pilot sites, is it okay if we send our veterans to apprenticeships too? And we're like, of course. So we're really excited about where that's going. Let me go to the next slide, please. And we will talk about what is a registered apprenticeship. Because this was a great learning experience for me last winter as we started digging into it. And I came to know, largely through the great tutelage of Carolyn Rennick, who you'll hear from shortly, that registered apprenticeships have some really powerful aspects to them. They are a paid job. So you are earning while you're learning, right? And so while you're going through this process, you are getting funds to be able to support yourself and your family. There's an educational component to it. You'll see that as you look into apprenticeships, they're often paired with institutions of higher learning in the community that allows them to get some academic skills and coursework. And then they come out with a nationally recognized credential, which is pretty powerful as well. Next slide, please. We know, as I mentioned earlier, it's more than just the trades. Look at some of these examples. Aerospace, cybersecurity, some powerful ones in here that all have apprenticeship threads and potential for people to go into. And if you backtrack on some of these, you'll see that a lot of folks coming out of the military have some of this already going for them. And then we also know that veterans will want to make career switches, and what better way than to do that through a VR&E supported process into an apprenticeship to learn a whole new career path. And so these are some of the broader domains and industry sectors that are available for folks to go into for apprenticeships. Let me give you a few more examples. Next slide, please. Take a look at the range of occupations that are available. Some are more familiar, bakers, machinists. What's not written there in that center column are people that can do advanced manufacturing. Cybersecurity, we mentioned software developer, and the sky is really the limit. So we know that there are great potential, lots of apprenticeships out there, more that could certainly be developed, and there's now an infrastructure to help employers who want to put these together, to get them put together in an effective way, to then start that that flow into their ranks for the skills they need. Next slide, please. So what's good about a registered apprenticeship for the veteran? Talked about a paycheck from day one, talked about higher wages, on-the-job training in a wide variety of occupations, opportunity to go directly into it based on completing that apprenticeship. They come out at a higher level, obviously, college credits along the way. A lot of this is familiar for folks who have served in the military because it parallels some of their experience with training and education through a progressive process that they're familiar with from their military time. Clear guidelines, training standards. Again, military training can feel and look a lot like that and very comfortable for a military veteran. And again, at the end, they come out with an industry recognized portable credential that they can take with them wherever they choose to move and live with their family. So some great benefits for the veteran. Next slide. How about for the employers? Talked about reduced turnover, increased productivity and safety, lower cost for recruitment. A lot of that upfront work is done, and then somebody comes in and works and learns in the organization. And so now you've got somebody that you are getting a feel for their skill sets and their goodness of fit over time, as opposed to, we better get this hiring decision right now in a short period. So great fit there. Increased opportunity for diversity for folks going through these processes. And if you would like to know more, there are a couple of links down there for websites, one of which talks about for every dollar that's put into developing an apprenticeship by an employer, take a look at what the returns are. It's greater than $1. There's the teaser reveal. And in some cases, there are tax credits available for employers who take advantage of these. Now, there's another category that, in addition to the veteran and in addition to the employer, human nature is human nature. If the route to get into this for this particular pilot is through a voc rehab counselor, there's got to be some benefits for them too. So just to let you know what's behind the curtain there, as with any of us, the easier we can make that process, the more likely we're going to engage in it and say yes and work with it. And so for a voc rehab counselor to be able to get somebody into this process and be able to have them supervised all the way through with their mentors and the people that are guiding through the process, it's a great return on investment for them as well. So we really think that that 222 that we cited in the earlier slide can really start to grow because of some of these changes. So where does that leave us? Going back out for a little bit, the Disabled Veteran Program, this past year, we got things in place for it. FY21, we're going to get this position filled, let Stephanie Chan round out her team, and then start to work and learn from the community about how best to address the needs of veterans who have disabilities. And then we're going to wrap up the apprenticeship project and scale the good parts of it out across the country and the community to take advantage of what worked there. So those are the bits and pieces I wanted to share with you. And now I'm open to any questions or comments you all have.
Thank you, Bill. This is Sophie. I'll ask a question, and I'm sorry if maybe you mentioned this, but what is the length of time for the program for the typical wounded vet going through it?
So that one, the answer to that is it depends on the apprenticeship. What's kind of cool about apprenticeships is some of them can be pretty short depending on what the needs are because they're employer driven. And so if somebody who is in a software development arena says, you know, I can get somebody trained in 9 months, okay, that's a great thing. Now there are some standards that have to be met in terms of the number of hours of education and training that have to be conducted to get certain certifications for a registered apprenticeship. The length of time really does vary from several months to some of them are years.
Thank you. It looks like Mark's put a link in there to a vet's website where there's more information about the Hire Vets program. And Andrew has asked a question. How do we access apprentices? Through the VR&E counselor?
Yep, there are a couple of ways. A great place to start I think Carolyn will reinforce later, is start with apprenticeship.gov, and that's sort of an entryway to all apprenticeships. And then what you can do is you can use that as a way to say, I'm interested, and how do I set this up? And there are ways to indicate if you are particularly veteran friendly. There's a way to indicate that. If you're a registered apprenticeship, once you get that sort of DOL overlay, that's a plus, because that speeds up the process then for the voc rehab counselors to go, okay, this apprenticeship has already met the national standards to be a DOL registered apprenticeship. So that's the upfront groundwork that can be laid early on. And then there are folks in there, if you're looking for the how do I do it, or let's get real specific here, there's ways to get those details as well. Now that's coming through from a Department of Labor entryway. Now, if you're interested in diving straight in through the voc rehab program, through the voc rehab counselors, that one, the best way would be to go through their websites, through the VAs, and say, hey, I'm an employer and I'd like to work with folks enrolled in the program, and that would get you linked up there. So either way is going to get you to the right spot. The voc rehab counselors are coming at it from I have a veteran and we're looking for what employers need and where the apprenticeships are. So they're not the ones who would necessarily establish an apprenticeship with you. That would be more on the state side or the Department of Labor side to help you get it put together. And then the VR&E folks are the folks that can provide those veterans into your flow.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone else have questions? We'll certainly make the slides, including Bill's, available to all the participants after today. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to learn more about it and to learn again how we as an employer can make a difference for a veteran, particularly a wounded veteran, and get that 222 number exponentially greater over time.
Great.
And again, you
thanks,
know,
Sophie.
we have yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Bill. And we have a silver lining with COVID right now, so hopefully it ends soon. But I think we've learned a lot about how we can all work and be productive contributors to our various organizations in a remote setting. So that might also serve our veterans well. So we'll transition now to Carolyn Rennick. So thank you, Carolyn, for joining. Carolyn is the lead for the VETS Apprenticeship Licensing and Credentialing program, where she oversees the development and implementation of this new VETS Apprenticeship Pilot that is really intended to connect transitioning service members and their spouses with apprenticeship opportunities. So prior to their separation from the military, which is great because it gives them a leg up when they actually do separate and are going to join industry. Prior to joining VETS, Carolyn worked in the U.S. Department of Labor's National Office for Apprenticeship, where she was the lead for business engagement and outreach in that office. And she also worked with the Bureau of Labor Statistics as an economist. So thank you for joining us, Carolyn, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great, thank you, Sophie. Thank you all for inviting me to speak today about apprenticeship and the U.S. Department of Labor's VETS Apprenticeship Pilot. Expanding apprenticeship is one of the top priorities at the Department of Labor as well as for this administration. Currently, there's over 6 million open jobs in our country, and employers are unable to find individuals with the skills that they're looking for. So as a result, employers are turning to the apprenticeship model to attract, train, and retain a highly skilled workforce. I know that last week was Veterans Day, and I know that you're celebrating Veterans Day every day. So last week was also National Apprenticeship Week here at Department of Labor. So we're excited to continue another apprenticeship event here with you today. There are over 800 events held nationwide to support and celebrate apprenticeship. And this is the 6th year that Department of Labor is actually celebrating this week. So what is apprenticeship? So next slide, please. So apprenticeship is an industry-driven, high-quality career pathway where employers can develop and prepare their future workforce, and individuals can obtain paid work experience, classroom instruction, and a portable, nationally recognized credential. As Bill mentioned, a lot of these details earlier about what apprenticeship is, it's really a customizable, flexible, proven business-driven model for developing workers. You know, workers are using it for a talent development solution, an effective tool that they can fit into their current HR training and development strategies. They're using it as a career development path for new and current employees, and also like a talent funnel pipeline for veterans and other untapped talent. So next slide, please. So why apprenticeship? I'm often asked, why should my company start an apprenticeship program? Apprenticeships are being used by companies to build a competitive workforce that will help them compete in domestic and global markets, building that skill set of their current employees, of their new employees. It's really a time-tested model that's been used for centuries. It's a proven strategy for recruiting, training, and retaining world-class talent. Here at the Department of Labor, we've had the National Apprenticeship Act that was approved in 1937. So we've had registered apprenticeship for over 80 years. And we just now this year instituted a new apprenticeship program called the Industry Recognized Apprenticeships. And I'll talk about that as we go forward. And thirdly, it's a time-tested model that has been used for centuries. It's proven, it's adaptable and flexible. Programs are individually designed for each company and can be integrated into existing training development strategies. So, you know, I know a number of years people probably started to look at the registered apprenticeship system. There were a lot of restrictions related to it. As the years have gone by recently, we've made it much more flexible, much more user-friendly, employer-friendly, and you know, anybody who is interested in looking at apprenticeship further, I'm happy to talk to you about it, how you can develop one at your company itself to develop and train new members coming into your programs. Next slide, please. So the 5 components of apprenticeship, and I know that Bill touched on these earlier, but really apprenticeship programs are distinguished from other types of workplace training models by several factors. Apprenticeships are jobs. Apprentices are paid from day one. They are actually hired employees. These apprenticeship programs provide on-the-job learning as well as job-related classroom training. You know, on-the-job learning, this is where it's a structured and supervised opportunity for the employer to take this individual and learn the culture of the organization and the institutional knowledge. It's really valuable for the company to pass on what's important and how they conduct business from seasoned employees. And in the Registered Apprenticeship Program, the on-the-job learning portion is about 2,000 hours, so which is about 1 year minimum. The third one here is a job-related classroom training. So that job-related classroom training, that is really that classroom training portion or associated curriculum. For the Registered Apprenticeship Program, it's about 144 hours recommended training hours. And this is where they're going to learn and master the cognitive skills needed to perform the job. It can occur at a company, it can occur at a community college, a four-year college, a training center, and actually online. A lot of employers now are having to do their training virtually. The fourth one, learning with the help of a mentor. Someone who's going through the apprenticeship program is paired with a mentor, and that mentor is helping them through that apprenticeship. And the last one, they're receiving an industry recognized credential upon completion. So apprenticeship, you know, as I mentioned, the length of apprenticeship can vary depending upon the employer, the complexity of the occupation, industry, and program type. Just want to give you an idea. Typically, the apprenticeship programs for the registered apprenticeship programs vary anywhere from 1 year to 5 years in length. Typically, an IT or cyber program is anywhere from 1 year to 2 years long. More like a construction or the skills trades is more like a 2 year to 5 year program. So apprenticeship programs can span hundreds of different occupations. Bill had put up a slew of different examples earlier. When I was in the Office of Apprenticeship, I was the lead for financial services apprenticeship programs as well as cybersecurity apprenticeship programs. And just to name a few that I was working very closely with was Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, the Hartford, IBM, Aon, Zurich. So those are just to name a few. Those are where they're the larger companies, but also apprenticeship has been very, very successful to assist the smaller and medium-sized companies as well. Next slide, please. So benefits for employers. As I mentioned earlier today, you know, there's 6.4 million jobs that remain unfilled due to the growing skills gap that exists in this workforce. And many of these vacancies remain unfilled because employers cannot find workers with the right skills. Other factors could include an aging workforce and technology changes that are happening and impacting the employers. And due to these technology advances like artificial intelligence and virtual augmented reality, the workplace is radically changing across all industries, and employers are turning to the apprenticeship really like never before. In fact, there's been over 800 million new apprentices just over the past 3.5 years alone. So there's a, with a 94% retention rate, return on investment, companies of all sizes. As I mentioned before, we've got, some of the ones I mentioned, but we also have Microsoft, Amazon, CVS, Northrop Grumman, Hilton. These are just a few examples where they're creating programs to train students and adults for careers of today and tomorrow. Apprenticeship not only can be used to train new employees that are coming into your program, but they can also be used to train current employees. For example, say you've got someone who's in your HR department, comes into work every day, hardworking, very smart, and you've got space and you're in desperate need of someone in your IT or cyber area. You could take someone who's got that propensity and wants to go into IT and cyber, take them through an internal apprenticeship program and give them the skills that they need to master that occupation, be fully competent. So those are just a few examples that I'd like to share with you. So employers are benefiting from developing apprenticeship programs by helping them create a diverse and highly skilled workforce. They can prioritize their hiring to focus on veterans and women and people with disabilities. It provides improved productivity and profitability for the employer, increases the loyalty of their staff and retention of workers. Employers with apprenticeship programs also have access to a number of federal and state resources and may receive tax credits and employee tuition benefits as well. Next slide, please. So benefits for career seekers. Apprentices earn as they learn. As I said earlier, they are earning a paycheck from day one. Many times, in terms of going through an apprenticeship program, they are let's say the related technical instruction portion is getting paid for by the employer most of the time. So that person is avoiding student debt. They gain relevant workplace skills in the field of their choice. So apprenticeship programs are occupation focused. So as that individual is going through that occupation, they are learning everything all the competencies they need to master that occupation. Next one, they ease transition from school or military service to the career, and they receive that industry recognized and portable credential. So if you want more information, I encourage you at the bottom of the slide, apprenticeship.gov. There's information for an employer, if they want to hire a veteran, if you want to start an apprenticeship program, or if you're a career seeker and you want to become an apprentice, lots of information there for you to explore. Next slide. So some of these numbers we've talked about earlier. For every dollar invested in apprenticeship by employers, are seeing $1.47 in return. Huge return on investment here. Many employers are starting to look at apprenticeship for these reasons alone. 94% of registered apprentices are employed upon their completion of their apprenticeship program. They earn $70,000 after they complete the program. So a lot of really strong statistics out there to support the apprenticeship. Next slide. So the Department of Labor has been validating registered apprenticeship programs for over 80 years. And in order to expand the apprenticeship model to help Americans obtain relevant skills and high-paying jobs, the Department of Labor launched a brand new industry-recognized apprenticeship program for those who prefer a different option. These new, we're calling them IRAPs. These new industry-recognized apprenticeship programs, they're new, high-quality apprenticeship programs that are validated by third-party standards recognition entities. We're calling them SREs. They are innovative and customizable models of apprenticeship that use industry-driven approaches that are tailored to the workforce needs of businesses. So what the Department of Labor did was they actually just approved 18 brand new SREs back in September. You can go to the website and find out who they are. They can work with you to explore these new IRAP programs if that's something that you're interested in. There's differences between the industry-recognized apprenticeship programs and the registered apprenticeship programs. A couple of them are difference in terms of length of the program itself. As I mentioned, the Registered Apprenticeship Program is about a minimum of a year in length. The industry recognized programs, there's not that minimum time requirement. So there's some other differences, but those are very clearly laid out on apprenticeship.gov. Next slide, please. So employers, I've mentioned to you a few different times. I think this slide just kind of gives you some more employers that we're working with. They are starting apprenticeship programs to prioritize and diversify their hiring and use them to attract veterans, women, and people with disabilities to their companies. AWS, Amazon Web Services, they have a fantastic apprenticeship program that's located here in Northern Virginia, where I am. And they have apprentices that are going through their program, and when they complete their apprenticeship, they're making 6 figures. So it's really an exciting opportunity that we're being able to give to our veterans. Next slide, please. So many times employers will reach out to us and they'll ask us for ideas on how to attract more veterans to their companies. And we often talk to them about, developing an apprenticeship program. So one of the reasons is, veterans who are in an approved apprenticeship program can not only earn their apprenticeship wages, but they can also tap into their post 9/11 GI Bill benefits and receive their monthly housing allowance tax-free based on where their apprenticeship training is occurring. So this benefit has attracted many veterans and employers that have apprenticeship programs, much more so than just those that have, an on-the-job training program. In addition, there's funding for books and supplies as well. So, if you're an employer out there and you're interested in apprenticeship, you're interested in recruiting veterans, again, this is a great tie-in to assist that veteran who wants to tap into their GI Bill. Next slide, please. So the VETS Apprenticeship Pilot. As I mentioned already, apprenticeship programs allow someone who's not fully competent in an occupation to learn the skills needed to be fully successful and secure a meaningful career. That's why we feel that it's so important to educate our transitioning military about apprenticeship and all the benefits that are available to them through apprenticeship programs. As Assistant Secretary Lowry stated, at VETS, our vision is to enable all veterans to reach their full potential in the workplace. And this pilot ties into this vision and our agency's priority to ensure that transitioning service members receive the best career advice and preparation possible during their separation from service, which includes informing them about apprenticeship and its many benefits. So there's 2 main goals for the apprenticeship pilot. One is to identify, track, and increase the number of transitioning service members and their spouses hired prior to separation from the military into an apprenticeship program so they can transition right into the apprenticeship soon after their separation from service. The second is to increase the number of apprenticeship programs that hire transitioning service members and their spouses prior to their separation from military. Second slide, please. Pilot execution. So the pilot officially began April 2020 and will run through 1 year for April 2021. To execute the pilot, we've placed and hired 16 brand new apprenticeship placement counselors at 8 pilot locations. They're assisting the transitioning service members and their spouses in finding and getting placed into apprenticeship opportunities. So the pilot originally began at 8 sites that were chosen in conjunction with the Department of Defense. You can see here on the slide, 2 for each military service. 3 apprenticeship placement counselors were placed at the larger installations for the Army and Navy, and only 1 counselor was placed at each of the smaller locations to include the Air Force and Marine Corps sites. So what they were doing back in January, they started briefing these TAP classes, the transition assistance classes. They were briefing the service members, telling them about apprenticeship, the value of apprenticeship, what it means to be an apprentice, the value for employers, why would they want to start an apprenticeship program. But the most important part was they were talking to them about the services that they can provide to them as an apprenticeship placement counselor, helping them find and get placed into an apprenticeship. So, mid-March comes, COVID-19 hits. They were no longer able to get in front of these service members during the in-person classes. So right now what they're doing is they're now briefing all virtual Department of Labor TAP classes that are occurring worldwide. So they're engaging with transitioning service members and their spouses worldwide who want to come back to the United States and get involved with an apprenticeship. So they are, you know, if a transitioning service member raises their hand, says, I'm interested, can you help me? I would love to find an apprenticeship. What they do is they work individually with that apprenticeship placement counselor. They talk about where they want to go after they separate, you know, the 3 locations in the country where they want to transition to, as well as what occupations they're interested in. So, you know, even though I mentioned here, we've got these 8 locations, these 8 pilot sites, these apprenticeship placement counselors are placing transitioning service members all throughout the country, because you could have someone who's transitioning, you know, out of Fort Bliss in Texas, but they want to go back home to Michigan, or maybe they want to go just where the best job is, maybe in Washington, D.C. So let's see, we've got, you know, these counselors are working in conjunction with employers, industry associations, and others to help them identify apprenticeship opportunities all throughout the United States. They're using resources such as apprenticeship.gov, and on apprenticeship.gov, just gonna put a plug in for that. It's a fantastic tool. There's an apprenticeship job finder tool where actually someone can go and look for open apprenticeship opportunities that are open right now. There's a partner finder tool where if you want to look and see in your area what employers out there have apprenticeship programs. And then there's the occupation finder tool where you can go and search on different occupations and find apprenticeship programs that way. Next slide. So far in the pilot, the Army sites have placed the most transitioning service members into apprenticeship programs. And I think right now, I know this slide was just from a week ago, but now we're up to 18 transitioning service members that we've placed into apprenticeship programs. And the lessons learned from the pilot will be used to inform the creation of a broader digital strategy with the goal of connecting transitioning service members at installations worldwide with apprenticeship opportunities. So, you know, we anticipate that placement numbers will continue to increase as we implement new strategies to engage employers and interested in connecting with the pilot and attracting transitioning service members who want to use the services of the apprenticeship placement counselors. Next slide, please. So here on this slide, I put a lot of resources, great resources from the Department of Labor that can help you as an employer explore more about apprenticeship, explore more about how you can hire transitioning service members and veterans into your company. And next slide, please. And here's my contact information. So if any of you are out there and you're interested in talking more about how you can develop an apprenticeship program, I'm happy to talk to you. Also want to let you know that every single state in this country has apprenticeship staff that are willing to work with you free of charge to help develop and explore the right apprenticeship program for you. You know, I'm looking for additional employers that have an apprenticeship program that would like to connect with our pilot and tap into these transitioning service members as potential apprentices. So please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in connecting with our pilot or if you're interested in exploring apprenticeship. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Sophie.
So thank you, Carolyn. That was incredibly informative and really a call to action, right, for all of us as employers on this call, that there's no downside to this. It's a win-win for everyone, and you've really built out the apprenticeship program. So even at GDIT, if we don't have an apprenticeship program, we haven't thought through that yet, you've already laid a lot of the groundwork for us to not only bring that into our own company, but to apply it directly to serving our veterans. So thank you for that. I also thank you for the opportunity to connect with you directly. It's always great to have partnerships in the government that are really focused on the same mission that we are. So thank you, Carolyn, for sharing today. Any other comments or questions?
This is Andrea. I do have one, actually a couple quick questions. So how is it, Caroline, that we can connect with the placement counselors at the installations where we currently have employment opportunities, was my first question. And then my second question was, if you had any information about a program called SkillStorm and tapping into the IT apprenticeship opportunities.
Sure, thanks, Andrea. With regards to connecting your apprenticeship program with this pilot, so the way it works is what we do is we have a contractor who is helping us assist and develop this pilot program and execute it. What we would do is I would connect you with the project manager, and then there's an outreach lead, and this outreach lead engages with all the employers who've reached out to us. What they do is they get more information about your program, when you're looking to hire, what occupations you're focused in, where in the country these positions are located. And then what we do is we share it with all the apprenticeship placement counselors. And then when they're working individually with the transitioning service members, they put these programs right in front of them. So for example, if you've got something in IT or cyber, that is actually the top industry area that our transitioning service members who are working with our counselors are indicating. So, like if you've got an IT program, let's say we have, 20 employers that they have IT programs, they can put them in front of them saying, oh, you want to go back to Michigan? Oh, here's the programs that we know of that, employers have reached out to us with connecting with the pilot that we can put in front of you. We can also utilize apprenticeship.gov to find more programs that are out there. So if you've got a program, reach out to us. We'll make sure that it gets to the apprenticeship placement counselors and gets right in front of those transitioning service members. Second question, SkillStorm. So I'm sure you're referring to the Serco CEO letter. Yes, so Serco is the contractor who is supporting our pilot, and they are trying to help us in increasing our numbers. They have reached out to, I believe, over 100 CEOs out there, asking them to sign this pledge to connect with apprenticeship. Now, if you don't have an apprenticeship program, the Office of Apprenticeship can work with you to develop an apprenticeship program. But those that already do have an apprenticeship program, those are the ones that we can connect directly to our counselors and get this information in front of our transitioning service members. So I'm really excited that he's getting that information out about apprenticeship. SkillStorm is connected with them because I believe their apprenticeship program is going to be active in January. So if you want to start an IT apprenticeship program, you can connect with them to actually move forward. They're already going to be the registered apprenticeship sponsor. And what you can do is you could probably come up underneath their umbrella and sign a one-page employer acceptance agreement and engage with their program so that you wouldn't have to do all the paperwork on your own.
Excellent. Thank you so very much for that. And yes, our CEO is one of the CEOs that signed the commitment with the Serco CEO. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was very informative. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Lowry, Bill, and Carolyn for your time today. I appreciate the patience with our technology issues. I'm sure we're all familiar with those in our various circles that we travel in. Thank you for helping us to put veterans at the forefront and honoring our veterans every day, and for the information that we now have the challenge, right, to take back and do something with. Disability in DC Metro would love to partner with you more, and certainly Andrea's volunteered GD to also serve as a partner to come alongside any of the programs that you are working with for veterans, for our spouses, and certainly our wounded veterans. I want to just open the floor one last time to anyone who'd like to make a comment, and then turn it over to Catherine to close us out. Okay, Catherine, the floor is yours. Did we lose Catherine? Catherine, you're on mute.
Thank you. It wouldn't let me unmute, which is very rare for me. So I wanted to just thank you all, especially our speakers and also our members of DC Metro Disability In, but also everyone who's joined us today. As we mentioned, this has been recorded and it will be posted once it's captioned. If there's someone that you think would like to see this recording, please let us know. You can email me directly. If you go into the Disability DC Metro website, which is di-dc.org, di-dc.org, you can contact us, you can sign up for our newsletter, and actually to vets and the apprenticeship program, you should know that our newsletter in November spoke about all of the things that you touched on. And so we're glad to be the vehicle to get information out to the more than 1,000 people who have that access to our newsletter. And we'll get that out to everyone as soon as possible. We will be planning for our next year events, so keep in touch if you have a topic that you want us to address. But thank you again, and happy Veterans Month and Veterans Year.